Hey everyone, it's Kate with Maritime Ceramics. Welcome back. Today we are going to be looking at a quick and simple project that anybody can do that's going to make your ceramics truly unique. So you can buy all sorts of stamps online, texture rollers, all that kind of stuff. All of those things are fine and wonderful and there's nothing wrong with them. I like to hand carve my stamps as much as possible. This stamp is something that nobody else has or is ever going to have. I have handmade this, and I really love the feeling of, having handmade a thing from beginning to finish. And it's a great way to use up some extra clay that you've got lying around. So it's clay that doesn't go into your reclaim, and nobody likes doing reclaim. And it's fun. It's really satisfying. This is going to be probably quite a short video. Like I say, this is pretty simple, which is a really awesome thing in ceramics because a lot of things we do are not simple. So take your wins where you can find them. Okay, so this is an example of what I'm talking about when I say a hand-carved stamp. I use these all the time on my own projects. I have a couple of motifs I use a lot. So I've got a bunch of different kinds of fiddle heads, and I use different combinations of them just depending on, what I'm making and how I'm feeling on the day. And I also tend to do a lot of spirals. There's nothing magical about either of these. They're just things that I happen to like making and using. So, whatever it is that you want to make, go ahead and do that. So what you're going to need for this project is some clay. This is just some reclaim. I have recently purchased a pug mill, which is possibly the most exciting thing to ever happen. It is a huge investment, but anyway, that's, I guess, a story for another video. So this is reclaimed clay. It would be white stoneware, mostly porcelain, so a really smooth, there's no grog in this clay. When I learned to do this process, they said, use the smooth clay. You don't want the grog in there. But I think you can use whatever clay you've got, and you're just going to get a slightly different kind of texture if you use a clay that's got grog in it. This just happens to be what I'm working with at the moment. So you're going to want some clay, and you're going to want some tools to do your carving with. So, really and truly, you can use anything that you want. It's just like carving into your finished piece, right? Same principle. So, I have accumulated a whole lot of different things to use to cut into clay. So the first thing you're going to do is get a chunk of clay. How big a chunk of clay is going to depend on the size of stamp that you want to make. I'm going to make, I think, maybe a couple of small ones, and I just, kind of roll them up. I don't stress about this part of the process at all. The only thing that really matters is that the surface you're going to be carving on is smooth. So you get your chunk of clay, however big you want it to be, and kind of make it into the basic shape that you want. So let's say I'll do a spiral carving. So I want it to be roundish. But if I was making one of these guys with the fiddle head, then I would want kind of a longer, narrower one. So I make it into relatively, the shape and size that I want. And then you take a nice clean surface and just smoosh it down. And this part of it is just for you to hold on to. So, whatever works, it really doesn't matter what you do with this part. This is essentially your handle for your stamp. So you can see there, I'm just going to do a little extra smoothing with my finger. So there's the surface for your stamp. Make a bunch and let yourself play with these. Now what you're going to do is set this aside and let it dry to leather hard. Okay, so I went off and threw some pots, and these are now I would call these a soft leather hard. Ordinarily, I would wait until they're actually a little harder, but that's okay. We can carry on. They're hard enough, I think. Maybe not that one. You need to remember two things when you're carving these. Number one, the image will be reversed. For example, I have this fiddlehead, which wraps around this way, but then when I stamp it, it wraps around this way, right? So if you're carving anything with letters or words on it, that's really important. Fiddleheads, it's not so important. It doesn't really matter. So that's the first thing to remember. The second thing to remember is that anywhere you cut away from the stamp will be raised. I'm going to show you what I mean by all of that. So, see what I mean? Where I've cut away these little divots, whatever you want to call them, they're raised up in the end result when I use the stamp. So sometimes that can be a little hard to wrap your head around, but the good news is that clay is probably the cheapest of our many materials. So, you know, if you make one and you don't like it, you can just turf it. I use a Sharpie to mark out what I'm thinking about. And I really like these brush ones because the tip of them is pretty flexible. Okay? So when you mark on it, mark on your clay, it doesn't dig into the clay. I'm going to try doing a starfish. Okay, so starfishes, as I recall, kind of have like dots along their legs, and then kind of a collection of dots in the middle. So for this stamp, I want to stamp the starfish and have that be what you see. So I'm going to carve away outside, and then I will carve some spots in the middle. If I carved away the pink stuff, like the inside part of it, then what I would get is a circle with raised starfish in the middle when I stamp, right? You would see the edge of this circle. I don't want to see the edge of the circle, so I'm going to carve away those bits. Use whatever you like. It really and truly doesn't matter. Whatever tools you're most comfortable with. These are really a little bit too soft, but if you have time to play with, I would recommend waiting until they are more leather hard. This is more of a leather soft scenario. So then I'm going to use, I think, something like this to kind of carve out the main areas. And for the moment, I'm not being too picky about this part of it. I will come back when it is harder and actually cut out those sections. I'm just trimming this off because I want these legs to come to a point, as a starfish's legs do. I think I'm going to use the end of this. I could also use something like this, or even just a pencil tip. I'll take my glasses off. I am at that age. I'm going to make these quite deep because I suspect that, I've never done anything quite like this, but I suspect that the clay might not smush into that quite so easily. So I think a larger hole might work better. We'll find out. I mean, you can do it anyway. No right or wrong here, but what I'm looking for is a more rounded kind of edge so that when I make the stamp, I'm not getting this kind of hard edge. I want more of a sloped, rounded edge. So I'm going to use this just to kind of mold this a little bit. I mean, again, that's no right or wrong there. It's just kind of what I am after today. The advantage of doing this when it is a little softer is you can kind of use your fingers a little bit too, just to kind of soften that edge up a little bit. Okay, and then starfish gonna have this texture to them, right? So I'm gonna just come in here and do a whole bunch of little dots. There. It looks like a hot mess right now. Hopefully it looks better when it's stamped. I don't know. Then I'll just let it dry. If in your climate at the moment that you're watching this is super dry and things are drying really fast, I would put this underneath a cloth because it is a fair chunk of clay and you could get some cracking. It does not matter if this cracks, but you don't want it to ruin your stamp, right? So I usually set them like this so that the stamp part dries the slowest and cover them up with a cloth if I think it's going to dry too quickly because you want it to dry evenly. So you set it aside, let it dry longer than you think it needs to, and then put it in with your next bisque load. And all you're going to do is bisque these stamps and then they're ready to use. These guys have been bisqued. They have not been obviously glaze fired. They're not glazed. The reason you want them bisqued is because, I mean, obviously it increases the durability, but you don't want them fired any hotter than a bisque because you lose the porosity. So these will suck up some moisture as you're doing your stamping, which keeps them from sticking as you stamp. And that's it, you guys. Super, super simple. I tend to like very simple shapes. So, I got a lot of spirals and fiddleheads, but you can do like whatever you want to. The awesome thing about this is that really it doesn't take much time to do them and it's not much clay. So if you make it and you think, ugh, no, when it's fired and you stamp it, you decide you don't like it, then no big deal. I mean, I've even got little tiny ones, right? So you can make them any size, any shape that you want. I've got long and narrow ones. You do you. And that's the beauty of this, that you can make things that will be completely unique to you and to your pottery. I hope that you give this a try. If you do, let me know how you make out down in the comments. And if you go to the community tab on my YouTube page, you have to do that, I think, on a phone or on a computer. You can see the posts that I've made, but you can also add your own posts. I've left it open so that viewers can add their own posts, and I would love to see the stamps that you make, and I would love to see the work that you make with your stamps. Have fun personalizing your pottery. Thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time, happy potting.